The billionaire's world shattered the day his wife died, or so he thought. But years later, a stranger, a young black girl with tears in her eyes, whispered 5 words that froze him in place. "Your wife is still alive." From that moment, his empire meant nothing. His heart, his past, and his sanity were about to be tested in a race against the shadows, because sometimes, the dead don't stay buried, and the truth refuses to die. The night was dressed in gold. The chandeliers inside the Riverside Gala burned like tiny suns, their light bouncing off champagne glasses and diamond necklaces. Every step, every whisper, every camera flash painted a picture of wealth and perfection. But beneath that glitter, Ethan Vale stood like a ghost among the living. He was one of the richest men in America, billionaire investor, philanthropist, visionary. To the world, he was power personified. But inside, he was hollow. 3 years earlier, his wife Elena Vale had vanished. The private jet she boarded to deliver medical aid in Africa had gone down in a river gorge. No survivors. No trace. Only fragments of metal, a burnt flight recorder, and a necklace he had given her. The media called it a tragic accident. Ethan called it the day time stopped. He buried an empty coffin. He bought a mountain estate just to be alone. And when reporters asked how he was holding up, he smiled the way a broken man smiles, convincing everyone except himself. Tonight, he had forced himself out of hiding for the first time in months. The gala was hosted in his honor, some charity event named after his late wife. He didn't even remember agreeing to attend. Maybe guilt made him come. Maybe the loneliness did. He stood near the marble balcony, swirling a glass of aged scotch, trying not to think of the soft laughter that used to echo beside him at events like this. The laughter that was gone forever. Then he heard a voice. "Mr. Vale." Soft. Shaky. Female. He turned. Standing a few feet away was a young woman. Black, early 20s, wearing a simple beige dress that looked painfully out of place among tuxedos and designer gowns. Her dark eyes darted around nervously, like she didn't belong here, and knew it. "Yes," Ethan said, frowning slightly. The girl hesitated, stepping closer. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted, then closed again. She looked terrified. "Mr. Vale," she whispered. "Your wife, she's still alive." Ethan froze. The words hit him like a bullet. For a moment, he thought he'd misheard. The orchestra played softly in the background, violins humming a slow melody, but all sound faded around him. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice low, dangerous. The girl's eyes glistened. "She's alive," she said again. "Elena Vale is alive." Before Ethan could react, she reached into her pocket and pulled something out, a small, tarnished silver locket. She pressed it into his hand. The second he saw it, his heart stopped. He knew that locket. He'd given it to Elena on their honeymoon in Santorini. Inside was a picture of them, smiling under the sunset. He snapped it open. It was real. The same tiny scratch near the hinge, the same faint perfume that still clung to the metal. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. The girl glanced over her shoulder nervously. "I can't talk here," she whispered. "They're watching." "Who's watching?" Ethan pressed. But before she could answer, the crowd shifted. 2 men in black suits appeared near the bar, scanning the room like hunters. The girl's eyes widened in terror. She whispered something, so faint Ethan barely caught it. "Find me, before they do." Then she turned and bolted toward the exit. "Wait!" Ethan shouted, dropping his glass. The sound of shattering crystal drew stares from half the room, but he didn't care. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the whispers. The girl vanished through the main doors. Outside, the night was thick with rain. The marble steps of the Riverside Hotel gleamed like mirrors under the streetlights. Ethan caught a glimpse of her darting into an alley. "Marcus," he barked. His driver, a tall ex-military man with sharp eyes, was already sprinting from the car. "I see her, sir." They jumped into the black SUV, tires screeching as they peeled away from the curb. Ethan's mind was a storm. Could it be true? Could Elena be alive? No. Impossible. And yet, the locket in his hand was real. "Follow her," he ordered. The girl ran like someone who'd been running for her life for a long time. Through narrow streets, past shuttered shops, until finally, she disappeared into the old dockyard district, a place long forgotten by the city's rich. Marcus parked near a row of decaying warehouses. The rain poured harder, soaking their suits as they stepped out. "There." Marcus pointed. Under a flickering streetlight stood the girl. She looked over her shoulder, fear carved into her face. Ethan approached slowly, holding up his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "Tell me what you know." She swallowed hard. "She's alive," she repeated, voice trembling. "I've seen her. They're keeping her hidden." "You're not supposed to know." "Who's keeping her?" Ethan demanded. The girl hesitated. "If I tell you, they'll kill me." "Then I'll protect you," Ethan said firmly. "Tell me." A gunshot cracked through the night. The girl screamed and fell, clutching her shoulder. Ethan ducked behind a crate as another shot whizzed past. "Marcus," he yelled. Marcus drew his gun, firing back toward the shadows. Two figures in dark coats darted behind a truck, their muzzles flashing in the rain. Ethan crawled toward the girl, who was gasping in pain. Blood stained her dress. Her hand reached out weakly, gripping his wrist. Her voice came in a broken whisper. "Go, to Ravenshade Hospital, room 314, tell them, the Phoenix wakes." Her head slumped to the side, and her breathing slowed. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He pressed his jacket against her wound, but her eyes had already rolled back. Police sirens echoed in the distance. The attackers vanished into the darkness. Marcus grabbed Ethan's arm. "We need to move, now." Ethan looked at the girl one last time, then back at the locket in his hand. Rain dripped down his face, but he didn't feel it. He was staring into a storm much darker than the one above them. "Ravenshade Hospital," he murmured. "The Phoenix wakes." He didn't know what it meant. But he knew one thing. If there was even the smallest chance Elena was alive, he would burn the world to find her. And somewhere in the shadows, a man in a black coat watched them leave. Speaking softly into a hidden earpiece. "He knows." Rain hammered the streets as Ethan's SUV sped through the narrow roads, headlights slicing through the darkness. His pulse pounded in rhythm with the wipers beating against the windshield. Beside him, Marcus gripped the wheel, eyes scanning the shadows. They'd left the chaos of the Riverside Gala behind, but what had followed them was far worse. Whoever those gunmen were, they weren't amateurs. They'd aimed to kill. Not just scare. In the back seat, the girl lay unconscious, her skin pale, her shoulder wrapped tightly in Ethan's jacket. The wound was bad, but not fatal. She'd muttered a few broken words before passing out again. "Phoenix. Ravenshade, she's waiting." Ethan's mind raced. Ravenshade Hospital, he'd heard that name before. It was shut down years ago after a mysterious fire, one that killed several doctors and wiped out years of medical research. But why would a dying girl send him there? The SUV slowed as Marcus turned onto a deserted road near the industrial district. "Sir," Marcus said quietly, "someone's following us." Ethan twisted around. Through the rear window, a pair of headlights gleamed in the distance, keeping perfect pace. "Lose them," Ethan ordered. Marcus accelerated, tires squealing as the car shot down a side street. The pursuing vehicle matched their every move. Ethan clenched his fists. They want the girl. Then we make sure they don't get her, Marcus growled. The chase tore through the outskirts of the city, past warehouses and broken bridges. Rain turned the asphalt into glass, every skid a near disaster. Ethan could barely see the road, but he could feel the danger pressing closer. Then, a crash. A black sedan clipped their rear bumper, spinning the SUV sideways. Metal screamed. Tires smoked. Marcus fought the steering wheel, regaining control just before they slammed into a guardrail. "Hold on," he shouted. He swung the SUV hard, sending it crashing through a chain-link fence into an abandoned dockyard. The headlights illuminated towering cargo crates, rusted cranes, and puddles deep as ponds. The perfect place for an ambush, or an escape. Marcus cut the engine. "We've got seconds before they're on us." Ethan checked the girl, she was still breathing. "Get her somewhere safe," he said. "I'll draw them away." Marcus gave him a sharp look. "Sir, with all due respect, that's insane." Ethan stepped out into the rain, jaw set. "I've been living insane for 3 years." The night swallowed him whole. He moved between the shadows of the crates, the sound of footsteps echoing nearby. 2 men in tactical coats appeared, guns raised, moving methodically. They weren't common thugs, they were trained professionals. Ethan crouched behind a steel container, pulling out Marcus's spare pistol. He wasn't a soldier, but desperation made quick learners. A flash of movement, he fired once. The bullet struck metal inches from one man's head. They fired back, sparks flying. Ethan ducked low, heart hammering. "Marcus! Go!" Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed the girl, lifting her carefully, and ran toward an old warehouse. The rain and darkness covered his escape. Ethan kept the attackers' attention, moving silently from crate to crate. He heard them talking in hushed voices. "He has the girl." "No, he's alone." "Secure the area." "Orders are clear." "No witnesses." The phrase chilled him. No witnesses. He waited until one came close, then stepped out and struck hard with the pistol's handle. The man dropped instantly. Ethan grabbed his radio. "Target down," he said, mimicking the man's voice. "Copy that." "Proceed to extraction point," a voice replied. Extraction point. They weren't local. This was organized, planned. But by who? He glanced at the unconscious attacker, military boots, foreign patch on the sleeve, an emblem of a phoenix surrounded by flames. Phoenix. The same word the girl had whispered. Then, a sound behind him, a metallic click. He froze. The other gunman stood just 10 feet away, pistol aimed straight at him. "Drop it," the man said coldly. Ethan turned slowly, keeping his hands raised. "Who sent you?" he asked. The gunman's expression didn't change. "You should have stayed in your tower, Mr. Vale. The dead are meant to stay buried." Before Ethan could react, a single shot rang out. But not from the gunman. The man's eyes widened, then he fell forward. Marcus stood behind him, smoking gun in hand. "Sir," Marcus said, panting, "we have to go. Now." They ran back to the SUV. Ethan looked around one last time. The dockyard was quiet again, except for the rain and the faint hum of the city far away. Inside the car, the girl stirred, groaning softly. Ethan leaned closer. "You're safe now. But I need answers. Who are you?" Her eyes fluttered open. Pain clouded her gaze, but there was also something else, determination. "My name's Maya," she whispered. "I worked at Ravenshade Hospital, before the fire." Ethan frowned. "That place burned down." She shook her head weakly. "They said it did. But the truth, it never burned. It went underground. And your wife, she's there." Ethan's breath caught. Alive? Maya nodded slowly. They're experimenting, trying to bring people back. But not everyone stays human. Before he could ask more, she slipped back into unconsciousness. Marcus looked at Ethan through the rearview mirror. Sir, what now? Ethan stared out the window. The rain had slowed, replaced by a low mist crawling over the empty docks. Now, he said quietly, we go to Raven Shade. He looked down at the phoenix emblem torn from the dead man's sleeve. A bird rising from fire. A symbol of rebirth. A sign that his nightmare, and maybe his salvation, was just beginning. As the SUV disappeared into the night, lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the dockyard for a single heartbeat. And in that moment, a figure stepped from the shadows, speaking into an earpiece. He's going to Raven Shade, the voice said. A pause. Then a reply crackled through the static. Good. That's exactly where we want him. The storm had passed, but the city still wore its scars. Puddles reflected the bruised sky, and the streets glistened under the dim flicker of neon lights. Ethan Vale's SUV rolled to a stop before a towering structure that once carried life, and now, only whispers. Raven Shade Hospital. The building loomed like a monument to forgotten sins. Windows shattered. Vines creeping up cracked walls. A burned-out sign dangled near the gate, its faded letters barely visible in the dark. Marcus turned off the headlights. Sir, this place hasn't seen a living soul in years. You sure this is it? Ethan's jaw clenched. Maya said room 314. We find it. They stepped out into the chill air, their footsteps echoing across the broken pavement. The smell of mold and ash hung heavy, thick enough to taste. As they pushed through the front doors, a gust of wind swept through the ruined lobby, sending papers fluttering like white ghosts. The building felt alive, somehow. Alive with secrets. Ethan's flashlight cut through the darkness, sweeping over cracked tiles, collapsed ceilings, and faded hospital signs. They moved slowly down the hallway, the beam occasionally catching a rusted wheelchair or an overturned gurney. Place gives me the creeps, Marcus muttered. Ethan didn't respond. He was following the trail, her trail. They reached a staircase, its railing warped with rust. A sign above read, Patient Wing, Level 3. They climbed in silence, each creak of the steps echoing like a warning. By the time they reached the third floor, the air felt colder. And quieter. Room 314. The numbers were half-burned, barely legible. Ethan pushed open the door. It resisted at first, then gave way with a metallic groan. What lay beyond made his blood run cold. The room wasn't a hospital room anymore. It was a lab. Rows of medical equipment lined the walls, computers, monitors, and storage units humming faintly with power. Some of them were new, impossibly so. There were notes scattered across a metal desk, files labeled Subject E07, Neurological Regeneration Trials, and Project Phoenix. Marcus glanced around in disbelief. This place isn't abandoned. Someone's been working here, recently. Ethan moved to the nearest table. On it, under a flickering light, lay a photo. Elena. Alive. Her face pale, eyes closed, lying in a hospital bed surrounded by tubes and machines. He lifted the photo with trembling hands. On the back, a date, 6 months ago. His breath caught in his throat. It was her. It had to be. Marcus, he said, voice breaking. She's here, she's really here. Marcus looked at the walls, at the screen still blinking faintly. Then this isn't just a hospital. It's a cover-up. Ethan started searching the room. He opened drawers, flipped through medical reports, scanned anything that could explain what this Project Phoenix was. Most of the data was encrypted, lines of code instead of words. But one file was printed in plain English. It read. Subject E07, successful preservation and cellular restoration achieved. Cognitive pattern stable. Physical recovery incomplete. Relocation required for continued observation. Ethan's pulse raced. Subject E07. E for Elena. Before he could read further, a noise echoed from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Marcus drew his gun. We're not alone. Ethan turned off his flashlight. The room fell into darkness, broken only by the faint glow of the monitors. The door creaked open. A man stepped in, tall, thin, wearing a white lab coat smeared with dust. His hair was gray, eyes hollow from sleepless nights. When he saw them, he froze. Who are you? Ethan raised the photo. I could ask you the same thing. Who's running this place? Where is my wife? The man hesitated, then sighed, shoulders slumping. You shouldn't be here. Start talking, Marcus said, his gun steady. The man's gaze darted between them, then to the files on the desk. You don't understand. The Phoenix Project wasn't meant for the public. It was an experiment in cellular reanimation. Reanimation? Ethan repeated, stunned. The man nodded. We discovered a way to restore biological function after clinical death. Your wife was one of our early cases. The plane crash, she was declared dead. But her body, it wasn't. She was preserved, revived. We brought her back. Ethan's mind spun. You brought her back. Then where is she? Where is Elena? She's gone, the man said quietly. They took her. Who? Before the man could answer, a red dot appeared on his forehead. Down! Marcus shouted, tackling Ethan to the floor. The window exploded inward, one perfect sniper shot. The doctor fell instantly, lifeless. Ethan crawled to him, blood pooling beneath the man's head. His hand was still clutching a small data drive. Ethan pried it free and shoved it into his pocket. Marcus pulled him up. We have to move. Now. They bolted from the room as more shots rang out, shattering glass and sending dust raining from the ceiling. They sprinted down the hallway, ducking behind corners until they reached the emergency exit. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air felt heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. Ethan leaned against the SUV, chest heaving. His hands shook around the data drive. Marcus looked at him. Sir, that man wasn't lying, was he? Ethan stared at the building, its windows glowing faintly from inside. No, he whispered. He wasn't lying. He opened his hand. The drive gleamed under the streetlight, small but powerful, like the truth itself. Run an analysis, Ethan said, climbing into the car. Every file, every byte. I want to know what's inside. Marcus nodded and started the engine. As they drove off, Ethan looked out the window one last time. Behind them, the hospital seemed to come alive, light flickering through the cracks, like something deep inside had just woken up. And from a rooftop across the street, a man lowered a sniper rifle and spoke into a radio. Target escaped, he said. But he has the data. A voice crackled back through the speaker. Good. Let him keep it. It'll lead him exactly where we want him to go. The man smiled. Understood. As the SUV vanished into the distance, lightning flashed again, illuminating the Phoenix emblem etched faintly on the hospital wall. And in that brief flash, Ethan Vale's search turned from grief into war. The city never truly slept, but Ethan Vale no longer noticed its pulse. For the first time in years, he had purpose. Real, burning purpose. The data drive from Ravenshade Hospital was his only clue, a small piece of metal that now held the answers to everything he'd been dying to know. In the dim glow of his private study, Ethan sat surrounded by monitors, each one displaying layers of encrypted files. Code, coordinates, research notes, all connected to something called Project Phoenix. Marcus stood nearby, arms crossed, as the tech team worked in silence. They'd been at it for hours, hacking through security firewalls that seemed almost military-grade. Finally, one of them looked up. "Sir, we're in." Ethan leaned forward. "Show me." The main screen flickered, then filled with rows of files, each labeled with a single word, rebirth. Regeneration. Subject E07. His eyes locked on that last one. He opened it. There she was again. Elena. A video began to play, grainy, silent footage from a sterile white room. Elena lay motionless on a medical bed. Electrodes lined her skin, machines beeping steadily beside her. Then, her eyes opened. Ethan's breath caught. It was her. He could see the life flickering back into her gaze, confusion mixed with fear. She tried to sit up, her lips moving soundlessly, then men in white coats rushed in and sedated her. The video cut out. Ethan leaned back, trembling. "She's alive. My God, she's alive." Marcus looked grim. "But she's not free. Whoever's running this project has her locked down tight." Ethan turned to his team. "Can we trace where that video was uploaded from?" One of the analysts typed rapidly. "Yes, sir. The data stream was rerouted through multiple private networks, but there's a repeating identifier." He zoomed in, revealing a series of coordinates. Marcus squinted. "That's the Sahara Desert." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The perfect place to hide something you don't want the world to find. He stood abruptly. "Get the jet ready." Hours later, Ethan's private aircraft sliced through the clouds like a blade. The world below turned from glittering city lights to endless waves of golden sand. Inside, the hum of the engines was the only sound, until Marcus broke the silence. "Sir, we've seen this kind of setup before. If this Phoenix facility is real, it's not just research. It's a fortress." Ethan's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. "Then we break the fortress." Marcus frowned. "You're walking into a trap." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "But it's where she is." He looked down at the locket in his hand, the same one Maya had given him at the gala. The same one Elena had worn the day she disappeared. "She's my wife, Marcus," he said softly. "And I buried her once. I won't do it again." By the time the plane touched down on a private runway near Morocco, the sun was bleeding orange across the dunes. They switched to off-road vehicles, armed with gear, communications jammers, and a small team of trusted operatives, men Ethan had once worked with during international security contracts. The coordinates led them to a barren stretch of desert. No buildings. No signs of life. Just sand, and silence. But Ethan knew better. He scanned the horizon with thermal imaging binoculars, and there it was. Beneath the dunes, faint heat signatures formed a rectangular pattern. Hidden. Buried. Alive. He turned to Marcus. "There's something under there. Deep." Marcus smirked. "A desert bunker. Classic." Ethan knelt beside the sand, brushing away a few grains until he hit metal, a vent, barely visible, humming faintly with airflow. "This is it," he said. Back at his temporary base camp, Ethan made calls that stretched across continents. He reached out to former intelligence officers, mercenaries, and cyber experts. He offered money, and not just money. He offered favors, debts, leverage. By nightfall, he had a full-scale private operation. Drones circling overhead. Encrypted communications. Blueprints being generated in real time. Marcus approached him as he studied the data on a holographic map. "Sir, if she's in there, she might not be the same person. You saw those reports, what if they changed her? Ethan didn't look up. Then I'll find out. And if they hurt her? I'll make sure they never hurt anyone again. His tone was ice, the kind that burned colder than fire. Hours turned into days. Every detail of the Phoenix facility was being uncovered, slowly, piece by piece. They discovered the organization wasn't a small secret lab. It was a network, a web of hidden facilities across multiple countries. The main one, codenamed Outpost 17, sat deep in the Sahara, disguised as a renewable energy research station. But buried underneath was the truth. Human experimentation. Resurrection. Control. Ethan stood over a glowing digital map, watching the blinking red dots, each one marking a life, each one someone's stolen future. He clenched his fists. How many? Over 60 subjects, the analyst replied. But only one matches your wife's profile. Subject E07. Marcus looked at him. You sure you want to do this, sir? Once we cross that line, there's no going back. Ethan stared out across the desert night, the wind whipping sand against his face. The moonlight caught the edge of his wedding ring. I crossed that line the moment she disappeared. He turned to his team. We go at dawn. As the first light crept over the dunes, Ethan's convoy moved out, silent, focused, unstoppable. The rising sun painted the world gold, but his eyes were locked ahead, cold and sharp. This was no longer just a rescue mission. It was a reckoning. In the distance, barely visible against the sand, a tall structure began to emerge. The Phoenix facility. Its surface gleamed like glass, beautiful and sterile, hiding the horror buried beneath. Ethan reached into his jacket and touched the locket once more. He could almost hear Elena's laughter in the wind. Hold on, he whispered. I'm coming. And as the desert sun climbed higher, Ethan Vale, the billionaire the world thought had everything, was about to lose the only thing left he could afford to lose. His mercy. The desert wind roared like a beast. It carried with it the weight of 1,000 forgotten cries, voices buried beneath the sand. Ethan Vale stood on a dune overlooking the Phoenix facility, its silver towers gleaming under the morning sun. From above, it looked like a research outpost. But underground, he knew the truth. This was where they had taken her. This was where his wife had been kept. And this was where he would end it. Marcus approached, sand whipping around his boots. Security patrols on every perimeter. We've got maybe a 15-minute window between rotations. Ethan nodded, eyes fixed ahead. 15 minutes is enough. His voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes only from pain sharpened into purpose. They moved fast. A small strike team of 5 men, elite, silent, precise. Each one hand-picked by Ethan himself. Drones hovered high above, feeding them live visuals of guard movements. The desert heat shimmered, masking their approach. As they neared the main compound, Ethan spotted a steel hatch half buried beneath the sand. This is it, he whispered. Marcus knelt beside it, attaching a small charge. Ready when you are. Ethan took one deep breath, then nodded. The explosion was small, controlled, just enough to pop the hatch loose without triggering alarms. They slipped inside. The tunnel beneath was cold, sterile, humming with low machinery. The walls glowed faint blue, lined with reinforced glass. Beyond those walls were what looked like medical pods, each one holding a human body suspended in translucent fluid. Ethan stopped, staring. Men. Women. Children. All connected to tubes, wires, machines. What the hell is this place? Marcus muttered. Ethan's voice was low. A factory, for life. They moved quietly through the corridors, passing lab rooms filled with computers and medical instruments. Then, from one room, Ethan heard something. A voice. Faint. Familiar. He froze. That voice. He turned the corner and saw her. Elena. She was lying in a glass chamber, eyes closed, connected to dozens of wires and 4 lines. Her skin was pale, her hair longer, but there was no mistake. It was her. For a moment, Ethan couldn't move. The world narrowed to that one image. His heart raced. His breath hitched. Elena. He placed his hand against the glass. Her eyes fluttered. Slowly, weakly, they opened, and found his. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling through the speakers. Emotion cracked his voice. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here. Tears blurred his vision. He pressed a hand to the glass, as if his touch could reach her. But before he could react further, a slow clap echoed through the room. Well done, Mr. Vale. Ethan spun around. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out from the shadows, his eyes cold and intelligent. His ID badge read Dr. Adrian Voss, the name that had appeared repeatedly in the files. I must say, Voss continued, I underestimated your persistence. Ethan's jaw tightened. You're the one who did this. You brought her here. Voss smiled thinly. Brought her back, you mean? He stepped closer, unbothered by the guns now pointed his way. You should be thanking me. Your wife was dead, Mr. Vale. Gone. But now, thanks to the Phoenix Project, she lives again. A miracle of science. Ethan's voice dropped to a growl. You call this life? Voss looked at Elena's pod. Better than death, isn't it? He turned his gaze back to Ethan, eyes glinting with arrogance. She's special, you know. Her recovery rate, her cognitive response, remarkable. She's the key to everything. Humanity's next step. Ethan raised his gun. You're done playing God. Voss smirked. If you shoot me, you'll never get her out. The systems here are linked. Her life support, her brain activity, one wrong move, and she dies for real this time. For a long, tense moment, the two men stared each other down. Then Ethan slowly lowered the gun, and smiled faintly. That's the thing about systems, he said. They can be broken. He reached into his jacket and pressed a button on his wristband. A deep, rumbling hum filled the air. Outside, the desert erupted in flashes of light. EMP charge, Marcus shouted. It's going to blow. The lights flickered, alarms wailed. Voss's smirk vanished. What have you done? Ethan stepped forward, voice calm. What I should have done years ago. The machines around them sparked violently. Glass cracked. Sparks showered the room. Voss lunged for a control panel, but Ethan grabbed him, slamming him against the wall. You used her, Ethan hissed. You played God with my wife's life. Now face yours. Before Voss could respond, the ceiling lights exploded in a burst of fire. Marcus rushed to the chamber. Sir, the system's failing. We've got seconds before it collapses. Ethan ran to Elena's pod, smashing the emergency release. The glass hissed open, steam billowing out. He caught her as she fell forward, her body weak but alive. Her fingers clutched his shirt. Ethan. I've got you, he whispered, holding her close. You're safe now. Behind them, Voss staggered toward the exit, coughing. You can't stop it. Phoenix will rise again. Ethan turned, eyes burning. Not if I bury it first. He triggered the final detonation sequence. The ground trembled. Explosions tore through the facility, swallowing the labs, the pods, the corridors. Ethan and Marcus carried Elena out into the desert as fire ripped through the night sky behind them. When they reached the ridge, they stopped to watch the facility sink into the sand, flames devouring the symbol of the phoenix. Days later, headlines spread across the world. Billionaire exposes illegal human experimentation. Missing wife found alive. The world called Ethan a hero. But to him, the only thing that mattered was the soft rise and fall of Elena's chest as she slept in a real hospital bed, free, at last. Maya Carter, the young nurse who had risked everything to warn him, survived her injuries and was now under protection. She visited Elena often, calling her the miracle woman. As the sun set outside the window, Elena stirred. Her voice was soft. They tried to erase me, but love found me again. Ethan smiled through tears. Always. He kissed her forehead gently. And for the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything, but lost everything, finally had what he wanted most. Not revenge. Not power. But peace. Sometimes, love isn't about holding on, it's about fighting through the dark, again and again, until the light finally finds you. Because even when the world says it's over, the heart says, she's still alive.